On Saturday, February 1st, a significant and emotional chapter unfolded in the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas as part of a broader truce aimed at ending the 15-month war in Gaza. This moment was marked by the release of 3 Israeli hostages, and in exchange, dozens of Palestinian prisoners and detainees were set free. These releases have captured the attention of both local and international communities, offering a glimpse of hope amid the ongoing challenges in the region. This exchange is seen as a crucial step in the fragile ceasefire, which has been in place to allow for critical negotiations and peace-building efforts between the two sides. However, the journey toward lasting peace remains uncertain, and these exchanges, while symbolic, are just one aspect of a much broader and deeply complex situation. In Gaza, the scene at the European hospital in Khan Yunis on February 1st was filled with emotion. As buses carrying Palestinian prisoners from Israeli detention centers arrived, crowds of people gathered eagerly, their faces a mix of joy and relief. Family members waited, hopeful for the return of their loved ones, many of whom had spent years behind bars. Among those freed was Zakaria al-Sabiri, who had been sentenced to 30 years. His reunion with his family was nothing short of emotional. A moment that deeply moved the crowd was when he kissed his wife's feet in a symbolic gesture of gratitude. For many Palestinians, the release of these prisoners was not just the return of individuals, but the return of hope for their families and for the wider Palestinian community still grappling with the consequences of the war. As the buses arrived, many of the released prisoners were carried on the shoulders of relatives and friends, paraded through the streets with cheers and tears. These reunions were an emotional moment for all involved, especially as some prisoners had not seen their families in years. These releases, though part of the larger swap, serve as a potent reminder of the human lives and relationships affected by the ongoing conflict. On the Israeli side, the release of 3 hostages, Keith Siegel, Ofer Calderon, and Yarden Bibas, was met with great joy and relief. These hostages had endured months of captivity after being taken during the violent attack in October 2023. On February 1st, they were finally freed and returned home, reunited with their families after what must have felt like an eternity of uncertainty and fear. Ofer Calderon, a French-Israeli national, was seen entering a hospital room in Israel, where his 4 children rushed to embrace him. His emotional reunion with his children, 2 of whom had also been kidnapped during the same attack and later released, was a powerful moment. "I didn't give up," Calderon said, holding his children close. His daughter reassured him with the words, "Everybody's okay, Dad. Everybody's okay." A moment of immense emotional relief for a family that had been through so much. Meanwhile, Yarden Bibas was reunited with his parents and sister at a medical center in Israel. The joy on his family's faces was unmistakable as they wrapped him in hugs, overwhelmed by the long-awaited return of their loved one. These personal reunions, while joyous, also serve as poignant reminders of the tremendous human toll this conflict has exacted on individuals and families. In Tel Aviv, hundreds gathered at Hostage Square, where large screens displayed footage of the hostages' return. Israelis watched intently as the 3 hostages were released, expressing their relief and hope for the end of the war. The crowd's reactions varied. Some were optimistic, while others expressed frustration with their government's handling of the situation. One resident, Ido from Haifa, shared, "We want this war to end. So many people have suffered so much, and it's been enough. We just want our normal life back. We want to make Israel normal again." This sentiment of exhaustion and longing for peace echoed throughout the crowd. However, not everyone was satisfied with the pace of government action.
And I think that our government and our prime minister, or crime minister, כמו I call him, don't make enough to bring them home. And I feel very bad about it. So many people was died.
When I see them, I just want to cry, man. I'm very emotional about it. Because what these people went through, it's like horrific.
Ofer Avni, a Tel Aviv resident, voiced his concerns, saying, "I think our government isn't doing enough to bring our people home." His words spoke to the deep divisions and the emotional cost of the conflict, as families continue to await the return of those still held captive. Another emotional voice in the crowd, Guido Robles, an Israeli resident originally from Suriname, couldn't hold back tears as he watched the hostages return. "When I see them, I just want to cry, man. It's horrifying what these people went through," he said, overwhelmed by the sight of people who had endured unimaginable suffering. Amid the relief, the humanitarian situation continues to demand urgent attention. On the same day, a convoy of ambulances carrying critically ill Palestinian patients passed through the Rafah crossing en route to Egypt for medical treatment. This marked the first significant medical evacuation since the Rafah crossing was closed in May 2024. The World Health Organization's Dr. Rick Pieperkorn emphasized the need for increased medical evacuations, particularly for patients with traumatic injuries and severe health conditions exacerbated by the ongoing war. "It's critically important that we speed up the medevac outside Gaza," he stated, highlighting the estimated 12,000 to 14,000 critical patients who still require urgent care abroad. The opening of the Rafah crossing has brought a glimmer of hope to those in need of life-saving treatment outside the region. This development is a small yet meaningful step in the long road ahead for Gaza. The ability to move patients in and out of the region, along with the ongoing release of prisoners and hostages, signals a potential for more significant humanitarian initiatives in the coming weeks, provided the ceasefire holds and diplomatic negotiations continue. As the first phase of the exchange winds down, negotiations are set to continue. The next stage aims at securing the release of the remaining hostages and withdrawing Israeli troops from Gaza, with the ultimate goal of bringing an end to the violence that has affected so many lives. However, the path to peace remains fraught with challenges, and the road to healing will be long for both Israeli and Palestinian families. Despite the pain and suffering, these recent moments of reunion, both joyous and bittersweet, remind us of the resilience of the human spirit. Whether in Gaza or Israel, these exchanges, while not a final resolution, are a step toward the possibility of a future where families can live in peace and security, free from the shadow of violence and fear.